too. They go on about Queen Helen in the Talmud quite extensively and the gifts she gave to the temple. One was a plaque she put on the temple wall, which was a suspected adulteress plaque from Numbers, which is right after the Nazarite oath thing in Numbers 5 and 6, where you have to have a certain number of witnesses before you can accuse a woman of adultery. So it seems that she was accused of adultery. She was very sensitive to that subject. And she had a plaque put on the temple wall concerning the number of witnesses you need to make such an accusation. And the other thing she gave to the temple was the big candelabra, the gold candelabra that you see in the Arch of Titus being taken to Rome after the victory celebration. So she gave both of those. This is a very important convert. Her attendance, now in the book of Acts, I say in my books that the parallel to this thing, if you haven't read the book of Acts, we're not going to read it in this class, but I just bring it to your attention, is there is a Ethiopian queen's eunuch who sends her treasury representatives to Jerusalem. And on the way, he's stopped by an apostle called Philip. And Philip jumps on the back of his chariot and sees that the Ethiopian queen's eunuch is reading the Bible. But he's not reading Genesis 17 about circumcision. He's reading Isaiah 53:11, the suffering servant, according to the story in the New Testament. And the teacher then, now represented as Philip, says, "Don't you understand the meaning of what you are reading?" It's the same story exactly as the conversion episode of Queen Helen, but it's revised into the suffering servant away from the circumcision issue. He then immediately alights from the chariot and has himself baptized, and then Philip dematerializes and disappears and goes somewhere, he doesn't know, ends up in Caesarea when he's on his way to Gaza. Why would the representative of the queen, the treasury agent of the queen, be on the way to Gaza? Well, there was no Ethiopian queen at this time, you see, interested in Christianity. You can look and look and look. We even have her name, where they got her name was in Strabo's geography. That's where they got her name from. Repeated in Pliny the Elder's geography. Or is it the Younger? I can't remember which. And there was a Nubian kingdom south of Egypt, which once had a queen by the name of Candace, as it is in Greece, but that was 20 BC. And there's no indication that she was Christian or anything else. So, to my mind, this is a blind for the conversion of Queen Helen of Adiabene. The relation to the queen's eunuch. The Sudanese queens didn't have eunuchs and all that sort of thing. That all came from Persia and northern Iraq. The queen's eunuch is a play on circumcision because the Romans saw circumcision. In other words, it's a kind of nasty little, not spoof, but parody of the circumcision of Azat, the son of Queen Helen. And they're sending their treasury representatives to Jerusalem to relieve the famine. You see, where they send them is to Egypt to buy grain, and Gaza is the gateway to Egypt. And that's why the treasury agent is on his way to Egypt to buy grain. Now that's my presentation of James, the brother of Jesus. But I think the key is that both have, do you understand the meaning of what you're reading? One is the basic proof text of Christianity as we know it, the suffering servant. The other is the circumcision episode of Abraham circumcising his whole household. And to me, the glue has to do with the famine relief part of the situation and the treasury agent situation. Okay, I don't want to push it. You can read my books if you're interested in that. But why it's so important is that it bears on all these issues that we are talking about. And I mentioned it, so I wanted to tell you that's not great bearing on the Gospels, but it does bear on what we were reading in Galatians. So she left a very great name for herself for this benefaction. And she likewise sent a great sum of money to all the leaders in Jerusalem, and the distribution of the funds to the poor delivered many from extreme severity under the pressure of famine. Now, both of them, later on, we hear of this great tomb that they build outside the city of Jerusalem, a tomb with that Isatis ultimately, I think, builds for his, that the mother, Isates dies, I think, before the mother. Isates' brother Monobasis, he goes on, it's a very long story, and his kinsmen, seeing the king because of his pious worship of God, won the admiration of all men, became eager to abandon their ancestral religion and adopt the practices of the Jews. This is still in northern Iraq, Syria. The high nobles were very angry, and so on and so forth. In any case, there's some turmoil up there, and he describes it all. I can't read it all, but I want to get to this final episode where this is a very long episode, as you see. Not long afterwards, Isates died, having completed 55 years of life, having been monarch for 24. I don't know if we can date him, but somewhere in contemporary Paul. He left 24 sons and 24 daughters. I don't know about that. His orders were that his brother Monobasis should succeed him on the throne. And Monobasis faithfully kept his brother's orders. His mother Helena was sorely distressed by the news of her son's premature death. So he was to be expected of, oh, by the way, they call Monobasis at one point Helen's only begotten. My only begotten, meaning her favorite son. Now, when we read the baptism of Jesus in the New Testament, we'll see the same Greek word applied to this. This is my only begotten son, in him I am well pleased. I hope I'll be able to show you that episode. But the same word is used here in the story of Isates. And not many people know these stories. I'm not surprised, and I don't want to make a big thing of that. But these are very important for historical Jesus studies. Anyway, she arrived in Ayubini, but did not long survive her son, for weighed down with age and pain of sorrow, she quickly breathed her last. Monobasis sent her bones and those of his brother to Jerusalem, with instructions that they should be buried in the 3 pyramids that his mother had erected at a distance of 3 furlongs from the city. So she erected this big tomb, this tomb. And now, right after that, next episode, during the period when Fatis was procurator of Judea, which is in the early 40s, I think, 44, 45. Again, and a certain impostor named Theudas persuaded the majority of the masses to take up their possessions and follow him to the Jordan River. Now, that's referred to in the book of Acts. There's a speech in Acts 5, which is about Theudas, who thought he was somebody, and so on and so forth, and I'll read you that in a moment. Stated that he was a prophet and that he commanded the river would be parted and would provide them an easy passage. Theudas wants to lead the masses out in the wilderness, and this is right after the Queen Helen and tomb episode.